Finally tonight, Memorial Day is a day to be with family and friends, cooking out or traveling around the country. But the day, first and foremost, is to remember those men and women who gave the ultimate sacrifice for their country.
They gave up 2 lives for their country, the one they were living and the one they would have lived.
Today, our whole country thanks you, embraces you, and pledges to you. We will never forget our heroes.
Today, we also reflect on the sacrifice of the families they left behind and for whom every day is Memorial Day.
The country worth fighting for, indeed.
A very moving tribute to our fallen. Thank you to all those who have and are currently serving in the military and their families who should not be forgotten today. That is special report for tonight on this Memorial Day. I'm Mike Emanuel in Washington. The story, guest hosted by Melissa Francis, starts right now. Have a good evening. God bless America.
Indeed. Thanks, Mike. This is a Fox News alert. A state of emergency has been declared in Maryland following a devastating flood. I'm Melissa Francis in tonight for Martha MacCallum. For the second time in less than 2 years, Ellicott City is reeling from flash flooding that has trapped folks in their homes and cars and destroyed local businesses. In moments, we are going to be joined by the young woman who shot this footage and has now found herself at the center of this devastation not once, but twice. But we begin tonight with a desperate search for National Guardsman Edison Hermond. True to his profession, he tried to help his fellow citizens last night, only to get swept away by the raging waters. Authorities giving this update a short time ago.
It was a pretty chaotic scene last night whenever we arrived on scene. Multiple people trapped, both in vehicles and in buildings, and they were obviously our first priority.
In regards to the missing person, 39-year-old male, he was at a restaurant on Main Street, Lapa Lapa, with some other folks trying to hold a door from the water trying to come in. A lady approached and indicated she was trying to find her cat. He, along with some other folks, went back to assist her. And unfortunately, during that effort, they saw him go under the water and not surface.
We've also searched the river pretty extensively with human assets and cadaver dogs searching for victims and the missing person. So in that aspect of things, we're still in the active rescue mode.
Rich Edson reports live tonight from Ellicott City, Maryland. Rich.
Hey, good evening, Melissa. And officials say they are still searching for Edison Hermond. That effort continues here nearby Ellicott City. And just about 24 hours ago, he was eating at a restaurant 50 to 100 yards. That's Main Street right there. We're not allowed to go to that portion, but that's where a lot of the recovery efforts are concentrated. Officials say they also performed about 300 rescues because of last night's flooding. And then today, essentially, you had the cleanup. This entire area you're looking at now, first off, much of it was underwater about 24 hours ago. And then during the day today, crews pulled cars. If you can see the tracks in the sand there, those were cars that crews were removing from this area all throughout this stream as well. And then throughout the day, you've got tow trucks just pulling cars up from the lower part of that road down there. Police say the area down there is all washed away. This is a reminder. This is the second time that this happened in less than 2 years, and business owners in the area say they're getting tired of it.
So now here we are again, and it's sad, but I said to my husband, is this our new normal? Is this what's normal now? It's for us every couple of years to have to dig this place out.
You always pray that it's not going to happen again. But, every time it rains hard, you say a Hail Mary and hope it's not the time. And here we are.
You were trapped. A firefighter had to help you climb out of your building. Tell us about that.
It was actually just so surreal living through it all again. In 2016, I was able to just walk out my front door with a small bag of toiletries and not even a change of clothes. And this time, the water didn't recede enough for me to go out my front door. So I took a couple of bags and was able to climb out the back on the rooftops and down a ladder with a fireman who helped me. So.
What was going through your mind? I mean, this is the second time that you've run for your life. Did you think, how could this be happening again? Or what did you think?
Absolutely, I did. The only thing that was going through my mind as it was starting was that this isn't real. Like, I was in complete shock and I didn't believe it was really happening. And until the building started collapsing and cars were coming down the street, I honestly didn't believe that it was happening again. And once it started, I started freaking out, obviously, and, started packing a bag and planning for what was going to come next and, kind of going down the checklist of things that I should have done last time, but, shouldn't have had to do again. But here I was stuck doing them again.
For people who have never been in that situation, it is very difficult to understand how quickly the water comes. What is the time like in that instant?
It's fast and it's slow. It feels like it's going in slow motion, but it's, things get swept away so quickly, and the way that water takes things down, like it weighs nothing. Cars were just coming down like they were, just toys, and it rose up so fast and started ripping things out so quickly that I didn't, even know if I was actually safe in my apartment, because it's a stone building that I live in, and I'm on the 3rd floor apartment, but the way things were coming down around me, I had no idea if I was safe or not.
And it did eventually collapse, is that what you said?
I'm not sure actually of the status of my building. I don't believe it's collapsed. I think everything is still standing where I live, but everything else is, I know they've assessed everything today and have, lists of places that are safe and places you can't go in. The only things I've looked at are my building where I live and the salon that I work at up the street, which will have access to my salon with, assistance tomorrow.
I want to ask you the question that I think our whole audience is wondering right now as they watch this, which is, will you go back? I mean, it's happened twice.
It's a great question. Honestly, I don't have a good answer for it. After the flood of 2016, we rallied and we came back as a community stronger than ever. And I became close with all my neighbors in a way that we never were before. And we really rallied around each other and brought each other back. And we were almost, back to full capacity, operating like we were before. And then now this happens, we're all just questioning if we're going to go back or not. And, I live on Main Street, I work on Main Street, and my entire life is on Main Street. It is my home, and that's why I went back after 2016, is because it is home. I have built my life for myself here, and I don't want to have to leave, but honestly, experiencing this twice in under 2 years is incredibly traumatic, and I don't have a good answer for if I'm going to come back or not.
I know I read after the first one, you were scared that it was going to happen again, or that you'd be alone in the building. And when this happened, were you alone at the time? Was there anyone else around?
No, I live alone. And actually my neighbors just recently moved out. So, all the buildings are connected on Main Street, but the building that I live in, I am totally alone. There's no, nothing underneath it. There's no retail space that's taken up, and I don't have any neighbors. So it was literally just me in my building.
If you decide not to go back, do you have any idea where you would go instead?
No, I don't. I mean, I'm from Denver, so it's always an option to move back out west. But again, like, Ellicott City is my home, and the life that I've built for myself is here. So I don't know. I have no idea.
For people watching out there tonight, you said, it struck me, you said there were things that you were thinking you should have done last time that you didn't do, or what were some of those things?
Grabbing, things for the long term, because the last time things weren't in place as fast as they were this time. We didn't have access to our buildings for a week. So I didn't even have a change of clothes. I had to go to Target and buy toothpaste and a toothbrush and all that kind of thing. So I grabbed all my toiletries, shampoo, conditioner, a change of clothes to last me for about a week. I didn't make the best decisions in my choice of clothes, but whatever. Yeah, just those kinds of things, shampoo, conditioner, dryer, straightener.
Was that precious time that maybe, you should have run for it when you were collecting your things? Was that one thing you were thinking about, was, do I have time to grab this stuff?
I had nowhere to go, honestly. The fire department came in, they came into my building and told me to stay put because I don't have an exit out the back of my building, and the only way through the front is where the river, what the flood was, where the water was coming through. That's the only way I have out. So the fire department came in, made sure I was safe, and told me to stay put. And so I was stuck. I was helpless. I sat at my window and just had to watch the water ravage everything.
Oh, that must have been so terrifying. We can't even imagine. Thank you so much for sharing your story tonight. You're blessed that you made it out, and we're happy for that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thanks.
Still ahead tonight, Chelsea Clinton's Memorial Day message to President Trump. Well, it was, you quote, degrade what it means to be an American. Her comments and why some in the media say that she's exactly right. Plus, the White House working overtime to seal the deal on a meeting with Kim Jong-un and the president's latest move, and how North Korea is responding. That's next.
He's playing this like Ronald Reagan played Reykjavik. And I think his achievement will be as great or greater when it's all finished. But let's hope.
Breaking tonight, the race is on to salvage President Trump's June meeting with Kim Jong-un after a wild week that put it in jeopardy. A U.S. delegation hitting the ground in North Korea to, quote, make arrangements for the Singapore summit, scheduled to take place just 2 weeks from tomorrow. This comes in the wake of a surprise meeting between North and South Korea's leaders, where Kim apparently reaffirmed his commitment to, quote, completely denuclearize the Korean peninsula. Kristen Fisher is live at the White House with the latest developments. Kristen.
Hey, Melissa. Well, tonight, whether or not this summit is actually going to happen is still very much in question. But tonight and today, there really have been some new developments that are making it seem like this summit may very well be back on track. And the latest little nugget is that today, President Trump spoke on the phone with Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. And the White House says that the two agreed to meet in person, and I quote, to continue close coordination in advance of the expected meeting between the United States and North Korea. So that's a statement from the White House calling this summit expected. And then, of course, right now we know of at least two teams that are overseas preparing for this summit. One team is in Singapore, led by the White House Deputy Chief of Staff Joe Hagan. The other team is in North Korea, led by veteran American diplomat, the U.S. ambassador to the Philippines, Sung Kim. Now, he's facing off against the North Korean Vice Foreign Minister, whose explosive remarks last week, threatening a nuclear-to-nuclear showdown and calling Vice President Pence a political dummy, were partially responsible for President Trump canceling the summit. But since then, the president's done an about-face about the summit on Twitter and in remarks from the Oval Office on Saturday.
A lot of people are working on it. It's moving along very nicely. So we're looking at June 12th in Singapore. That hasn't changed. And it's moving along pretty well. So we'll see what happens.
Now, some lawmakers on Capitol Hill, including some Republicans, worry that with just 2 weeks to go, that there's not enough time to properly prepare for a meeting of this magnitude. But the president's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, said on Fox News Sunday that this is all playing out perfectly.
He canceled it, and now we have Kim Jong-un back where he was before, talking about wanting to do it, meeting with the leader of South Korea. So I don't want to raise expectations, but I think the president's strategy has played out really brilliantly.
After that surprise meeting on Saturday, the president of South Korea said North Korean leader Kim Jong-un committed to complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula, which is exactly what the White House wants. But of course, the North Koreans aren't really known for keeping their word, and many American officials are worried that they remain deeply skeptical that the North Koreans are going to continue to lie and that they would never officially entirely abandon all of their nuclear weapons. But of course, tonight, President Trump is continuing to try to change that, Melissa.
Well, every day the story changes and evolves, Kristen. Thank you. Here now is Jason Chaffetz, former Utah congressman and a Fox News contributor. We also have Y.J. Fisher, former State Department diplomat under President Obama, who helped implement the Iran nuclear deal. Thanks to both of you for joining us. YJ, I'll start with you. I mean, in some ways, Rudy Giuliani mentioned the idea of expectations and this on again, off again. In some ways, it's helpful because it limits the expectations for the summit.
I think that's exactly right. I think the question is how President Trump is going to use this time, and is he going to prepare for success? Because if he doesn't, then even if the summit gets rescheduled, it could easily get canceled again. If you look at what President Trump has done to date, Melissa, he's done three things. He set outsized expectations for the summit, overstated what he had achieved, and he has insisted on a maximalist position from the North Koreans. If you look at how Nixon approached Mao and how Reagan approached Gorbachev when they negotiated, that's not how they prepared for success.
Jason, I mean, one of the things the president always says is, you know, if you're going to think, you might as well think big. I mean, you wouldn't start a negotiation from your minimal position of, you know, you start from what's the absolute most that you want, don't you? Jason?
Yeah, well, what's fundamentally different here is that Donald Trump is actually at the negotiating table. That didn't happen under Obama. It didn't happen with Secretary Clinton. It didn't happen with Secretary Kerry. So the very fact that they're actually having this dialogue, bringing home hostages, they have made far more progress than anything else before. And I think Donald Trump, in conjunction with Mike Pompeo as the Secretary of State, are moving this in exactly the right direction. And whether or not it happens actually on the 12th or not, but it's moving in the right direction.
I think that, you know, one of the biggest concerns that everyone has mentioned is how do you verify that he's actually telling the truth, especially if they come to some agreement? I mean, YJ, I would ask you, as somebody who was involved in the Iran nuclear deal, you know, we heard about those anytime, anywhere inspections, and it doesn't seem like that actually happened. Are there things that you would do differently this time in order to make sure that we could actually inspect?
I think it's a great question. I think it's going to be the hardest part of the deal. And I actually think that ultimately President Trump would be very happy if he could get a deal as good as the Iran nuclear deal, because it is so unlikely that we are going to get the level of comprehensive verification with North Korea's program. I mean, North Korea is so much further along. It's really quite complicated. And I would also just add to this discussion, I think it's really also important to talk about what is President Trump going to put on the table. I mean, I would even ask Congressman Chaffetz how he feels about reports that President Trump was willing to pull U.S. troops out of South Korea. That was even before North Korea made a single concession. I mean, those troops are protecting the peace in South Korea and serving as a deterrent to China. And I think we need to ask, what is the U.S. willing to put on the table?
Well, I think before we pivot to that, I mean, let's tackle the idea of going in and authenticating what is actually going on, because she said the president would be lucky to get as good a deal as we got with Iran. And we know that that was a terrible deal because we never got the chance to go in and look at anything. So, Jason, do you think he would actually agree to a deal like the Iran deal? I mean, he threw that one in the wastebasket.
No, yeah, exactly. Donald Trump tore that agreement up because there was no verification. You could not get there, and he had to have weeks in advance. They could easily move the material. As the chairman of the Oversight Committee, I wanted to go to Iran. They said, no, you can't go. So what kind of verification is that? Donald Trump is leading. This is different than what you were used to dealing with, which is leading from behind. Donald Trump is leading from the front. And it's peace through strength. It is a page out of Ronald Reagan's book, and it's making sure that we have the strongest possible position economically and militarily. That's what's brought Kim Jong-un to the table, as well as the Chinese. And our partnership with South Korea and Japan is going to make the best difference.
YJ, what would be an appropriate, I like your question about, you know, what's an appropriate thing to give in exchange. What do you think would be appropriate?
I would argue that we actually had a great model with what we did in Iran, where we had a sort of less for less deal, an approach where Iran had to dismantle its nuclear program and had to do that first, and then it got economic concessions. Now, I know that one of the gripes that people had with President Trump
They didn't do that. They just moved it under another name and to another location. They didn't dismantle their program. So it was really less for nothing.
Iran did dismantle its program. We had IAEA inspectors on the ground who verified that more than 10 times, right? When you look at even what Prime Minister Netanyahu was alleging that Iran had actually violated, he was saying it was just the original intent back in the day of whether they had a nuclear program.
He said they moved it to a new location with all the same people and that they just changed the name of the project.
Only the documents.
Yeah, I saw him do it live. I did read the documents. That's what he said. It moved to a new location.
Right, but if you actually look at their nuclear program, there is no evidence of any cheating by Iran, and the IAEA weapons inspectors verified that more than 10 times.
They did exceed the heavy water, but that's another thing for another time. Okay, we're out of time. Thanks to both of you. We appreciate it. Thank you. Coming up, we are tracking Alberto, the first subtropical storm of the 2018 season. Not only is it packing potential tornadoes now, but how is it set to dump heavy rain all the way up into the Midwest and Mid-Atlantic this week? Plus, is President Trump degrading what it means to be an American? That is just one claim being made by former first daughter Chelsea Clinton. What she is telling a British newspaper next.
I loved that my parents expected me to have opinions and to be able to back them up with facts.
On Memorial Day 2007, an Army troop deployed in Iraq went on an emergency rescue mission when they were suddenly ambushed. 6 soldiers died in the attack. Tim Hallengring lived through that mission, and on this Memorial Day, the hometown hero was asked to be a grand marshal in his small town of Highlands, New Jersey. Tim agreed, but under the condition that the rest of his brothers be there too. With the help of GoFundMe, the town got the troop back together, and only we were there to capture their reunion 11 years later.
It's indescribable, losing friends right in front of you and not being able to do anything about it. We lost 6 that day. It was a DART mission, a down aircraft recovery mission, and they gave us the location to go, and we went, and we got ambushed on the way there and lost a few guys, and I didn't even know it was Memorial Day until we got back. Memorial Day was a tough day for all of us. It's one of those things that just kind of punches you in the stomach and takes your breath away. But luckily, I got some good troopers over there that help us all through it. Timmy standing by us, getting us all together, and it just makes it a little bit easier. The commander of the American Legion called me up one day and asked me if I wanted to do it, and I wasn't sure if I did. I don't ever want to do stuff on that day. It's very personal. And when he said Grand Marshal, I said, let me get back to you. And I called up some of the guys that I was with on that Memorial Day. I wanted to make sure that they knew that it was going to be a bigger parade than anything that they've seen. We're brothers. That's all it is. Combat vets, we always stick together. We always have each other's back. So it was an honor. Memorial Day, it's a tough day. A lot of people like to go out there and enjoy themselves and barbecue it up and maybe have a few, and it's fine, but I like to remember not just for the people that we lost, but people before us. We're pretty fortunate to be in a place that we're at, and it was because of them that we're able to do a lot of the stuff that we're able to do today.
It's not Veterans Day. It's a day where we remember those who died in the service of our country.
I haven't looked forward to a Memorial Day in 11 years because there's billboards, there's radio commercials, Memorial Day sale, Memorial Day giveaway, and it's just a lot more somber for me. It's a day of honor. It's not a day of summer. I feel like people forget that.
This one's different because I got my brothers here. You know, I haven't seen some of these guys in about 10, and some people in 12 years. And so being able to see them, it really, really makes me happy. You know, it makes me feel like me again.
My friend Jonathan Markham, his wife and his son are coming, and he never got to know his son. He was too young when he deployed. This is a chance for us to let his son know who he was. And he's going to lead the parade. It couldn't be a better tribute. That day's different for us. It's very personal for us, and that's why we want this parade to be personal. And we want to remind the American people of what Memorial Day is supposed to be.